Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2021 BMW X7, we're going to be showing you how to install the Stealth Trailer Hitch receiver. But before we get into that, why don't we take a minute, check this out, and see how it works. So that BMW name, what a lot of people think of when they first hear it is really nice. And that's because they have really good lines and luxury. And so if it were me and I was looking for a trailer hitch, I'd want one that would look good, that would maintain how the vehicle's gonna look. And the Stealth Hitch is gonna do just that. So believe it or not, the main body of our trailer hitch is already on the car. It's already behind the bumper and everything. So when you're not using this, it's gonna look completely factory. You're not even gonna have a clue it's there, as will nobody else. But whenever you're ready to use an accessory, you're gonna take your receiver tube opening, and this is essentially just gonna plug right into the hitch and allow you to do that. When you are ready to use this, underneath here in this opening, you can pop this plug out and then simply just take the receiver tube, turn that handle, and that will essentially lock into place. When you are using this, on the other side there's gonna be a lock, all right? So you wanna push that in, and that's going to lock the receiver tube to the hitch. And then obviously when you want to take this out, they do give you a couple of keys. Turn that, and turn the handle on the other side. This will drop down, and then you can reinstall the plug there. So this is what it's gonna look like when it's on. Not the most appealing, but who cares? Because when it is on, you're gonna be using it, right? So perfect for a bike rack and things like that. I do like that it comes way out because it gives you awesome clearance, and you're going to be able to use all those types of folding accessories, and you shouldn't have to worry at all about them even getting close to or making contact with the back of your BMW. So one of the big questions that we do get asked a lot is if the hitch is going to interfere with your hands-free liftgate assist. And I tried it earlier without the receiver tube in, and it worked just fine. So I'm curious to see if it'll work with the receiver tube actually plugged in, and first kick opened up like it should. Obviously you're just gonna have to kick your foot to either side of it for the sensor to pick it up. Something I do want to mention, which you probably heard me hinting to earlier, is you cannot tow a trailer with this particular setup here. The receiver tube is just for accessories, so you can't put like a regular trailer ball mount in here and hook up your trailer to it. But if you are going to be doing some towing, there is an option for you. There's a towing kit, I guess you could call it, and it comes with a special ball mount that's designed to pull trailers. It'll work the same way, it plugs up in there. And obviously if you're hooked up to a trailer, you want the lights to work. And it also comes with trailer wiring, so you can hook all that up. It's kind of the full package, if you will. And that brings me to my next point. If you got all that stuff, you're probably going to want a good way to store it, even with just this. If you don't want this to be rolling around in the back or whatever, they make carrying cases that hold all these accessories for the hitch and keep everything organized and clean. So that's something you can always check out as well. Now we can just grab a couple of measurements here, and these are going to help us figure out what type of accessories will work best. So obviously we're on a lift, and I will take that into consideration. The lift's about 8 inches. And from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube, that's right at 24, so minus 8. That'll be about 16 inches in from the top of the receiver tube to the ground. So pretty high. If your accessory has a straight shank, you'll probably be in good shape. If it has one with the rise in it, obviously you'll have more than enough there. And as far as our pinhole, the distance to the bumper from that, I'd say it's probably about 1.5 inches past our bumper. So we talked about it earlier. That's going to be more than sufficient to fold those accessories up and not have to worry about them hitting. This setup is going to have a 600-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating, so the amount of weight pushing down on the receiver tube. And that should be more than sufficient, again, for just about any accessory that you'd like to use. But other than that, at the end of the day, if you're looking for a really clean setup to use your accessories, really can't go wrong with it. And if you're looking to do some towing and whatnot, there's an option available for you as well. As far as the installation goes, it's really not bad. You do have to take the fascia off, but don't let that intimidate you. It's more or less just time consuming. And I say it because you want to be patient. There's a lot of clips and things along those lines that you just want to take your time with. That way you don't break them. But there's really not any special tools or anything out of the ordinary. Believe it or not, everything's pretty easy to get to. So stay focused, and hopefully our video can help you along the way. But if you'd like to see how that's done, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and install it together now. To begin your installation, you're going to be here at the back of your BMW. Obviously open up your hatches, and I like to fold the seats forward and stuff too, just to give us some more working room. But with that said, we're going to be removing, there's some interior panels here that'll pop out, and we need to get them out of the way. And that should give us access to a nut that's holding up our taillight, in somewhere up here in this area. And I want to mention, from this point on, anything we do to one side of the vehicle, we're going to do to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. So if you look in there, there's going to be a nut right there. You need to get that out. So an extension and a 10mm socket. Get that loosened up. Since it's kind of buried in there, I'm going to take a magnet too. That way I don't drop it. Or try not to, at least. I might be able to just reach in there by hand and get it, but regardless, we need to take it off. Back outside the vehicle, we're going to have this black plastic piece that we need to pop off to get to some more bolts holding on our taillight. And anywhere, you'll notice this along the way, anywhere that we're going to be working or kind of prying on, I put some painter's tape on there just so we don't scratch anything up. But I'm going to take a trim tool and simply just kind of pry this off. All right, so there's some clips there that come off. And then we're going to have a few different fasteners here. One of them, or two of them rather, will be a T30, and the other one will be an 8mm head screw. I'll pull this one off. And then I'm going to have to grab some type of different socket to get those out. So with these, it's pretty tight. So if you don't have a tool like this where you can put a bit in, you can always just take the bit. Then a lot of times use a 1/4 inch, just box wrench, regular, type wrench there, and turn it that way. But regardless, these are a T30, and I'll get both these pulled out. Now we can get the taillight out, so if you kind of just push on it that way, it pops right out. And then we can disconnect it. Looks like there's going to be that red tab. You kind of push that out, then push down on the center, and that will release it. We'll set our light off to the side. Now at our back wheel well, we're going to have this trim piece that comes up. Again, I taped all this up like we said. This little piece here is going to pop off up to about this area, and that'll allow us to get to some fasteners behind there. Since these are plastic clips, sometimes I like to just shoot some soapy water in the crack there, and that kind of just helps loosen things up. Sometimes you can kind of move it around just to kind of get things going here. Because really don't want to break any of these plastic clips. So it seems to actually be working pretty good. You can take a plastic trim tool. You want to start at the bottom. Kind of pry up on that. So there's a clip there. And then we're going to have some clips along the way that just pop out as well. So that's what was keeping this piece in here. So these clips here, that's what was kind of keeping this secured in. And that soapy water really helped out a lot getting these to pop out. So, but like I said, we only need to go up to about here, and then we're going to have two fasteners we need to pull out. One there, and one here. and these both had a 8mm size head on them. Just in front of our exhaust tips, we're gonna have these reflectors. I sprayed these down with soapy water too, and be real careful with these because they seem to like to break. So, you know, lubricate them, and keep in mind too, you know, on a super cold day or something, everything's brittle. So just take your time with this here. You're gonna take a trim tool and just kind of carefully start to work your way in there, and it'll pop free. And this piece here, that's where I was kind of prying, and I was trying to get in this area and putting a little bit of pressure on it. Once you do that, it'll kind of click in, and that's what you heard, that pop. It'll kind of pop itself out, and then you're able just to pull this straight back and get it out of the way. Behind that reflector, there's going to be an 8mm head screw. So use a socket and an extension and get it pulled out. Moving underneath our vehicle along this whole edge, you know, all the way across to the other side of our car, we're gonna have a bunch of 8mm head screws, kind of a little bit everywhere, you know, that just run along all the way through here. We're just gonna work our way around and get all of them removed. Pretty much every one that you see, just go ahead and pull out. There might come a point too, it looks like these panels are kind of sectioned, I guess you could call them. So if I had to guess, oh, maybe not. No, I'm right here. So yeah, these are kind of sectioned. There comes a point where these will release, and we might have some screws on this edge too. So I'll just push this back up and come back to it and just continue to work all these out here. And once I kind of started working my way in, there came a point where I took one more screw out and they all kind of just came down. So that's exactly what we were wanting anyway, get this stuff out of the way. I want to mention, I did not have to mess with these screws back here. Like I said earlier, whether or not we'll have to in the future, I'm not sure, but for now they're left in there. Now we should be able to get our fascia off. You know, it's probably a good idea to have a friend helping you out while you're doing this. But I like to start on the side, and I sprayed all the seams and stuff with soapy water again. That seems to really be helping on this car. We're going to start here and just start to kind of pop this off. You might come to a spot here and there where the clip's kind of hung up, and if that happens, you can take a trim tool or whatever and you know, apply the necessary pressure to it to get the fascia to release. Once we get in this spot, things start to get pretty tight, so you can kind of just start to pry like that. This is about as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to grab, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side about to this spot, then I'm going to grab someone to help me out here to get the rest of it off. I got someone helping me out here, and we'll kind of start to get it free. And then if you open up your, I guess call it your tailgate, maybe about halfway, there's going to be some clips here, and you can take an Allen key, I think it was a 5/16, I think, push down on them. And usually once you got some good pressure on it and one or two of them come free, everything else kind of just pops loose. And should be able to pop this off carefully, and we'll slowly start to bring it back. We'll probably have some wiring. In our case, we do. Now this connector here, and usually there's a tab that you can push down on. Looks like it's actually on the sides. So yeah, you can push down on the sides of that. That'll release it. And from there, we're in good shape. You can set this off to the side out of the way. Now if you look, we're gonna have this plastic panel here, I guess you could say. Let me set up the same on each side. We're gonna remove it. You'll have a 10mm nut. Pull that off. We're gonna have two pushpin fasteners as well. One here, you can use a pick or a flathead screwdriver, whatever you got. Pry up on the head of it. Work it out, and then this will kind of just pop up and you can set it to the side. Just on the passenger side, we're gonna have this wire that's connected to our bumper beam. We'll pry that out. And then on both sides, coming back to that, we're gonna have our exhaust is hung up right here. There's a 13mm nut. We'll take that off. I already did the other side, and under the car I checked there's a bracket that our exhaust will sit on, so we don't really have to worry about strapping it up or anything. But this will just kind of come off there and sit like that. There's gonna be this kick wand sensor. This is where you kick your foot underneath and that picks it up. We're gonna take that off though. There's 5 plastic fasteners, just like the ones before that we removed. And we'll work our way all the way across here. And depending on how this is gonna hang, I might take a bungee cord or something and just kind of strap it up, but we'll see once this last one comes out. So I feel like that's okay, but I might grab something and just kind of zip tie it up here for now so it's not, all the weight isn't supported on the wire. Each side of our vehicle, we're gonna have 4 nuts holding on our bumper beam. It's an 18mm socket. I did realize too, if you want to unplug this kick sensor, you can. I just left it there though for now. If it's in the way, I'll unplug it later, but just wanted to mention that. But with those off, I already took the other side off. We should be able to slide this out of the way, and then behind it there's this metal support beam, I guess you could call it. That will slide off as well. At this point we can grab our hitch. It's going to slide onto the factory studs. Like that. Take the original hardware here. Just gonna get the top one started. And then on the bottom, you're gonna take the included exhaust brackets. We'll put them on like that. That way this flat part with the holes in it is towards the outside of the vehicle and facing down. And then we'll get these nuts started, hand tight as well. So what you need to do now is make sure the hitch is centered. So I did that. You can usually measure from like the edge of the hitch to a constant. So say like that point on that side. Make sure they're the same on each side. Once you find that, just snug down one of these top nuts on each side. That way the hitch doesn't move. And before I do the rest of them, I want to take our exhaust and kind of get in place too, because you can slide this bracket back and forth. So if you ended up, you know, on this side having it all the way over here and the other way around on that side, it could kind of throw everything off. So they give you some new hardware. Take the bolt washer from the bottom. Push it up through our bracket. And by doing this on each side, it'll kind of center itself out, you know, where it naturally wants to go. So we shouldn't have to make any adjustments. I'll just get that hand tight. That way it'll stay put. And then we'll come back and snug the rest of our nuts down. So now what we need to do is come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. When you do this, I kind of like to make an X pattern just to make sure everything gets torqued down evenly. Once the hitch is torqued, we'll come back, the socket and wrench, and tighten these down. So what I went ahead and done, those little plastic panels that we took off earlier, I just reinstalled them the opposite way, slide back on 10mm nut and those two plastic little push pins. Our kick sensor thing, we have a metal flange here that's attached to our hitch. That just lines back up, and we use 3 push pins to re-secure our kick sensor. And at this point, if you got wiring with your hitch, it'd be a good time to start working on that. Ours is just the standard hitch, so we don't need to worry about it. But with that in mind, now we can take our block here. This is what's going to, essentially, our receiver tube is going to plug into. We need to get this bolted up to our hitch. So with this, you're going to make sure this handle's on the passenger side. And then this is going to line up the holes in the hitch. You take the big bolts they give you, push them through, and then on the other side, you can put on our nuts and get everything tightened down. So once your bolts are through, take the appropriate lock nuts, put them on, snug them up, and then once you have that done, you can take a socket and a wrench and torque these down to the specification. Now we're going to need to trim a little portion of our kick wand off. I do suggest, so this is actual sensor here. I do suggest popping this out and leaving it off to the side. That way you don't accidentally cut into it. But there's a diagram of the instructions. I marked it out, and with this being plastic, I'm just going to use a Dremel to kind of speed things up. You could probably use a pair of snips or something like that, but this is the route I'm going to take. I went ahead, took a file to these rough edges here from us cutting, just to kind of clean everything up and smooth it out, and just pushed our sensor back into the retainers there. And now we can move over to our fascia and get a piece trimmed out on that as well. So I was mistaken, and we actually don't need to trim our fascia, but rather the little center portion of the underbody panel that we removed. So following the diagram, we're going to cut off the little tabs and then kind of try to follow this around and run it up. So again, take my Dremel and get all this cut out. Pop that out, and then just like the other one, I'll come back with my file and clean up the rough edges. So here's what it looks like now that I smoothed it all out. I do suggest really focusing on the areas where this metal is and using that file to smooth things out, because honestly, this is where your hand's going to be going up through to get to your hitch and whatnot. So you don't want a hanging piece of sharp metal in there and accidentally cut yourself. So spend some time on this, get it smooth, and that way you don't end up nicking yourself in the future. So now with an extra set of hands, we can take our fascia and get it put back into place. Make sure you reconnect your electrical there. And we might have to kind of play with the tailgate, get it in the sweet spot. So we want to make sure these actually get lined up when we're doing all this. Put some downward pressure there and at least get them close. And as long as they look like they're getting started, then we can kind of continue to work our way around here. So once you have everything snapped into place and how you like it, just simply reinstall everything the opposite way that you removed it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Stealth Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2021 BMW X7.